I'll wait for a few of you to get here, and I'll have a little bit of my coffee. Once I see that somebody's joined, we'll start getting into some of the discussion. I'll probably just kind of ramble about what I normally do a bit until we have some questions and some back and forth. Again, I think these unannounced um, middle of the day during the work week might be the not brightest idea for when to do a live, but it is what it is. It's when I have time. Let me shift the camera a little bit. So hopefully some other people see it. Not really sure how to advertise the live. I don't think people get notifications, and from what somebody told me, they just went on YouTube and there was some pop up saying, that I was live. But I don't think there's any like advanced warnings, so it takes a little time for people to find it. Today I'm going to talk about, Tesla and the earnings coming out tomorrow. Um, I won't get into the details of the expectations or anything like that. Just what I think of Tesla in general right now and where I think we could see the stock price go when the earnings are announced tomorrow. They'll be out after the close. I'm not sure the exact time. Usually they come out somewhat quickly after the close. I see we have one person who found that I went live. Hopefully, somebody who's like, oh, there's another. Just takes a little bit. So again, I'll kind of, hey, good morning. How are you today? I think it's weird that Chop Master. What's your name so that I don't call you Chop Master? It'd be nice to refer to you properly. Um, I don't know how to get the lives to kinda pre-warn people that they're coming out so that they actually know when they're gonna be on. It seems like a lot of times it gives no notification and then it just kinda pops up, at least from what somebody was explaining to me, that it just kinda pops up and says, "Oh, Adam's live now." But there doesn't seem to be any advertising for it or any notification to people. Thanks, Ryan, I appreciate that. So I'm hoping to figure a way to kind of let people know in advance so that it isn't just this surprise all of a sudden because, people have their lives and need to plan things as well. So it's hard to, to get people coming. The other thing is, I figure if I stick with it a year or two, what could be really cool is the people who've been watching now when there's only maybe 5 or 10 people signing in or, hi, Erwin, how are you? Good morning. It might be kind of cool to see it grow if it grows, and kind of cool that we have a nice small little group and maybe even kind of get to know each other a little as well. Um, I figured I try to have something on my mind so that it's not just blind rambling. And today I figured I'd talk about Tesla a little bit since they have earnings tomorrow. Um, Tesla's a company that I think is a phenomenal company. I do worry about they've gotten so far ahead of themselves on pricing and they haven't had any real earnings increases over the past couple of years. And I think if that continues, that there's going to be a point that it's going to hurt the stock valuation. It's going to be hard to justify the high multiples if they're not still growing. And I don't want it heard the wrong way because I'm optimistic for their future. I think they do a really good job of controlling every aspect of their business. You know, one huge advantage, which is also with Rivian and even Lucid and Polestar, which is Volvo and some of the other, I think is the direct to consumer. By not having dealerships. You cut out a huge middleman, and then the middleman, where their profits are, Tesla's able to capture all of that. I think now GM had great earnings. Their stock was going straight up last I looked earlier this morning. I don't know if that's changed. I hope you guys don't hear the guy leaf blowing next door or whatever they're doing. Um, but GM actually pushed above 50. If I saw correctly, it was at like 51. I hadn't looked before we chatted, but they seem to be doing really well. But I had concerns about GM and Ford and Stellantis going forward because by having the dealerships, they lose out on a ton. And it's almost like being a franchise where with Tesla and the others, the direct to consumer alleviates a lot of expenses where you get to capture all of those costs. The other thing is Tesla also handles all the repairs, all the maintenance, and everything else, which is a good revenue source for the companies that, GM and Ford, they probably get a extra, but they're not really selling that to consumers. The dealerships are. They're probably selling some parts, but if it's GM or the others, there are additional parts that people can get that aren't necessarily GM parts. Whereas Tesla, you void the warranty if you use any non-Tesla part and any maintenance or anything else. So I see that as a great business model. Then you add the charging stations, which makes you the equivalent of not just the car company, but kind of like the gas station, is the way I think of it, and repairs and everything else that they seem to keep control of, which is why I think it's a great company. At the same time, if it ends up just being an auto company and doesn't have the growth that it's built into the PE ratios, eventually math is math, and at some point it has to make sense to the earnings. So if they go on another, even just the one quarter, but if they go on another year of not showing any growth, eventually the PT Barnum sale of the robo taxi and we're going to dominate the world and everything else is going to be a tough sale because some people are going to want to see some earnings growth and not simply just sales pitch of the future is going to be incredible. It might be, but to pay for that now when that's not in place is probably getting ahead of itself. But again, like I said, I really love Tesla, so it's hard for me to be negative on it. I would just be cautious about the stock price and being too bullish or just not realistic about where it is and if it's growing and things of that nature. I don't know what you guys think of Tesla. At least that's my thought. Um, there were some interesting earnings this morning. Verizon came out. And it wasn't as bad as the report made it out to be because they had some expenses as well, and their revenues were up, which to me is kind of more important. Um, Verizon's kind of a boring stock, but the earnings crushed the share price. At one point, I know it was under $41 a share. I did look before signing on, and it's back above it. Pays a nice dividend. I think if you have a cell phone, which yeah, I'm guessing we all do, we're kind of limited to AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and then the rest. So I don't really see them going anywhere for a long time, and getting a 6% dividend isn't so bad. So I think Verizon's a great little place to store some money and get that dividend payment, and you probably won't have a huge up or a huge down. So a day like today could be a nice opportunity to pick some up. As always, sorry for disclosure, you need to do your own research. This is just what works for me, not financial advice, just entertainment, things like that. Uh, Ryan, me too. I sell options on Tesla. I'll generally be around on both sides. I'll sell a put. I'll sell a call. I'll try to have a position, so I'm still long either way. Um, but yeah, I do the same thing going into earnings. I do as well because of the amount the volatility goes up and the premium that it gives. Um, I've been doing that with SMCI as well, and it's been working out really well. There are a few others I do that with. I even do that with Amazon and Google. Like, I have my main core position, and I don't know if you've seen some of my other videos. I actually separate my main account. I don't have online access because there's certain companies I just want to make sure I own forever, and I don't want to play around with them. Um, my financial advisor knows that if I want to sell something, I kind of joke that I'll fire them if they let me. So in there, I'll have Google and Amazon and Meta, uh, um, Starbucks, and there's a couple. Oh, Chevron. those are my 5 largest positions, but I'll still trade them in my other account on a smaller basis, and I like selling puts is what I really like. I don't mind buying stocks I like, and I feel like I don't want to say it's free money because of course it's not, and you have to manage the position if you get filled and if it goes against you. But even Boeing, I mean, I was very happy to be able to sell some calls against it yesterday, and I think you guys are well aware that I think Boeing has got a good way to move, but I see good opportunity in selling options. I think it's like I think of it as selling insurance. You don't want to be buying insurance; you want to be selling it. That's where the profits are. So yeah, I like doing that in Tesla as well. Anyway, that got me distracted. Verizon, I think it creates a good opportunity if you're looking for something that's boring, that'll pay a dividend. I kind of look at stocks like that, and Pfizer as well, with the guy talking today, who's investing in it about making some changes and feels like maybe they're not making the best investments for the future. So he's an activist, so he'll be involved and push things along, potentially even making some changes to the board, potentially not. But I feel like instead of buying a treasury or a CD or something like that, for me personally, I'd rather have some in a Verizon or a Pfizer or something that's going to give me the similar dividend as what the CD or treasury or whatever it is I might be looking at. And I still have the potential for the upside. Now I know I have the risk for the potential for the downside, but I also feel like they're boring companies that really don't do a whole lot, and I don't mind taking that risk. Um, so I guess we'll see what happens tomorrow with Tesla. There's a bunch of earnings this week, and then a bunch more next week. I'm excited. NextEra Energy Partners, I think they're reporting this week. I don't quite remember who else was. I thought PayPal might be. They've had some exciting moves in the market of recent. So I'll have to take a look at the schedule and see who else is reporting this week. Do you, Ryan? Do you happen to know who's reporting this week? Is there anyone you saw that you're interested to see? I mean, I know we're going right into the earnings for pretty much everybody now. Oh, I know Chevron is next week, I think, as well, because I've been selling puts on Chevron too. So I was watching. Oh, some of the information I on Tesla was from what is his name? I really like his YouTube channel, and now I'm not remembering. The gloom and doomers I watch are like I'll watch and I like him, but Michael Bordenero, who talks about real estate out of Florida. Um, I don't really like Orlando Minor, but I end up watching him too. I find him entertaining, but I think he sells a lot of negative, and I don't really love that. But I get good information off of those guys. Oh, Carlson. What's his name? Something Carlson. I really like him, and I watch his channel a lot. He's picked some stocks that I wouldn't like. He really likes Texas Roadhouse. He really likes Netflix, and he's done extremely well with his picks. And I like his analysis. I think he does a really good job. Joseph Carlson, that's his name. I think not only does he do a good analysis, like I find his explanation really good. I like the way he talks through things. I find his picks are really good. I actually jumped on board when he talked about booking because when he talked about it, he convinced me into it. Now, the trouble with trusting other people is you don't know when to sell. So if I give you a stock tip and you follow it, and it's not what you picked and it's not what you're convicted to, even if you trust the information, no matter if the stock goes up or down, you end up being the panic. So I suggest stock X, whatever it is. And you think, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I'll buy that. If the stock goes down, you're likely to second guess it because it wasn't necessarily your pick. And maybe you're not as convicted and you might sell it at a loss when, if it's my pick, I'm comfortable with it. The same goes the other way. As it starts going higher, if you're going to be nervous all the way through if it's not really what you wanted. It's why, as much as I say it for disclosure purposes and suggestions for people about, you know, do your own research, the reality is it's not just do your own research, it's pick your own picks so that you stick with them. You have to trust yourself and the ones you're convicted to. If you're listening to any of us on YouTube, it becomes hard to trade. Kind of my point with Booking. I think Joseph made a great analysis. I think it's a great company, and I think he's absolutely right. The other thing I like about Booking, me personally, I like more expensive stocks. I like the ones that are $3,000 a share. The reason I like them is they're less emotional. You get to the lower priced one, it draws the public in. They're pushing the markets based on the trading of the paper. The customer orders. Oh my God, it's so loud in the background. I hope that's not distracting me. I don't know if it's distracting you guys, but oh my God, they're driving me nuts. Um, but when you get into the stocks that are trading $3,000 a share, $2,000 a share, whatever it is, it's primarily institutional traders trading them, which means they're going to be less emotional and they're really going to value the stock based on the earnings and where they think the growth is and things of that nature. And while the dollar amount of movements might be significant, the percentages probably aren't all that significant. And I'd rather be investing in the companies that just the institutional traders are, because I feel like whatever the bid and offer is, you're probably getting a fair price. And what I mean by fair is that's what it's valued at today. Nobody's pushing it to try to drive trades or, retail traders to get in or get out. So when he talked about booking.com and I looked at it and I think it was trading, I don't remember, I think 3,700 or something like that. By the time it got to 4,000, I might be 1,000, I was all too excited about it to get out and take the trade, where I'm quite sure he's just stuck with it and the thing is just on a tear. And I'm guessing his analysis is right. I'm guessing it probably just continues. But since it wasn't my pick, I don't have the same type of conviction towards it as I do the ones that I go with. If Amazon is up or down, since I really love Amazon, it's very easy for me to stick with it and not pay much attention. Now, as Ryan suggested, I do like selling calls and I do like selling puts against it. And I'll even wait to 2 days before expiration, as silly as it is, and take 5 or 6 cents and be like, well, it's not getting to whatever price that I'm only getting the 8 cents for. But to me, it's like, why wouldn't I take it? Like, I might as well sell a call or sell an out of the money put when there's no earnings coming out or no nothing else. There's, of course, always risk. There can be news that comes out that'll shoot a stock in a really far direction either way. So I know that risk, but if I do it with stocks that I'm not too concerned if I get assigned, well, so I get assigned them. And if they're in my trading account, I don't have any issue selling them if I get taken on the calls. So that's why I like doing that stuff. That's also why I suggest sticking with your own picks and listening to others and seeing if they kind of conform to the ones you already like. But just following their picks is really tough to do. Anyway, my point is Joseph Carlson, he does a great analysis. I really like the stuff he looks at and how so if you don't look at his channel, I'd highly suggest it. Russ of Dapper Dividends, I like Russ as well. Um, I think he does a good analysis as well. And then for what we talked about the other day when I did the other live is I also try to not do over analysis. I find you can dig into things too far and think too much about it. Whereas these multi-billion dollar fund managers, not only are they able to do the same research we do, but they're on the phone with the board, they're on the phone with the CEOs. They have AI models that are not just taking into account the earnings and the growth and the things we think of, but if they think there's a 2% chance that the war in Israel is going to escalate, that'll be valued into the price of the stock. Like they'll have all of these things that they can put into their system that will adjust the valuations of these companies to be able to price it really properly for today's value. And like I said in the other live, I'm almost of the mind of where the Goldman Sachs analysis was saying they don't expect much more than a 3% return over the next 10 years. They might be right. I mean, we're going into a slowing economy. It's going to be hard to drive higher and higher revenues as the economy continues to slow. So I'm not sure where the growth will come from. I think it'll be very important to pick good companies, to pick things that are discounted. Recently I picked up Lululemon because I feel like similar to Tesla, they got so overvalued for such a long time that finally they had a nice correction. They had a good washout. They've sat for a bit, and now they're still projecting growth, and they're only trading at like 19 or 20 times earnings, and they're still growing pretty well. I think that initial excitement of it's the coolest thing out there is finally waned and it's no longer priced in. I think that correction has taken all of that out. And I don't think things will be as bad for a company like Lululemon as the market started to think. It's kind of why I liked it where it fell to. I felt the same way about Ulta Beauty. It just bugged me when they said Warren Buffett had bought it and the stock just shot up. Don't get me wrong, I was thrilled that it shot up, but I thought sometimes I think that's a bit of a silly reaction. Just because a good investor picks a company doesn't necessarily mean they're correct about it. So I took advantage of that move. Last I looked, I'm kind of kicking myself 'cause it's had some follow through. But I think it's going to be important going forward to be a good stock picker because I do think Goldman is probably right that as the economy continues to slow, we've already had a massive move. It's hard to envision the market having continual massive moves year in and year out going into a slowing economy. The things that I'd be careful of, like we discussed the other day, is if it really starts to take off and the earnings aren't going up, that I'd be real cautious about a melt up. We saw that for the internet bubble, and we even saw it in like 2008 when the markets just got further than they should have. In the internet bubble, that was when I was still working at the exchange, and I remember the markets just every single day, it was like just always went higher and they were always making new highs. Now, that's kind of what I look for and I hope to see in terms of a trade. If I hope the market melts up on one hand, but if it does melt up, we will have a big correction. Right now, I feel like it's overpriced, but I don't think overpriced, automatically equates to a big correction. Overpriced can stay that way for a long time if there's enough liquidity and enough companies are still having good earnings and moving along. Um, if we melt up, that would be the only time I kind of look to get out or really lower my position to a small percentage of my portfolio. So I would keep an eye to see if we just have some exorbitant growth without the earnings to justify it, and keep an eye on the earnings. If the earnings are growing, great. But if the market's just going higher and higher and earnings aren't really moving because we've actually slowed, that's a real problem. And I'd be cautious of that and start easing off my portfolio and then looking to get into more things that whether it's dividend companies or something that like a treasury or something like that that just is a safe investment. Um, I guess we'll see what happens as we move forward. Boy, I mean, I'm thrilled you guys made it, but I'm kind of bummed we didn't pick up and get a few additional people in to have some conversation. I love the format and I like being able to chat back and forth and answer questions. It gives a little bit to talk about. Maybe I have to figure a way to actually advertise the live a bit. Um, and then let's see, who else was it today? I mean, Target is below 150 last I looked. And again, I think that creates a good opportunity. I think as we get into the holiday season, sales will be just fine. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm guessing you guys too. Like, I'm still getting gifts for my son. I'm still getting gifts for friends. It's not like we're not going to be spending money as the holidays come along. So I think the retailers are going to surprise people. It's hard for me on a company like TJX that is already flying, but on something like Target that struggled for a bit, sure, it's not the opportunity where it's down to $130 a share like it was, but I think even here around 150, paying an okay dividend, when the holidays earnings come in and everything's just fine, I think we'll all be pleasantly surprised to see everything was just fine. And then the nuclear stuff, OKLO was on. They talked about it on CNBC today, which I hate because once they start talking about it a little too much, it makes me concerned it's run its course. That being said, I really do think the nuclear and the energy sector is a great one to be in. I think the AI demand, like they're talking about it all the time, and I think this is going to continue for the next 3, 4, maybe even 5 years, where the demand for energy is just going through the roof. And whether it's the nuclear, they're even needing to use gas and build more wind and solar. And now they're even talking about requiring Amazon and Google and the others to be a part of it and invest for it themselves. Um, I did look at SMR, Irwin, and I probably am going to pick up some of that as well. Because really, I think over the next years, and I don't know which companies are going to be the ones that actually perform, which is why the bets I'm making are small enough that it's like going down to the casino and making the bet. Um, I'm not super concerned about how much I've invested into them, but I do feel like if I get lucky, it's like hitting on the wheel, which is actually why I picked OKLO. Is I think it's I don't want to say the dumbest of the dumb, but it's the biggest crapshoot in some ways. Like some of the others are also legitimate energy companies, like VST is also one. Like they legitimately have a business, so it's less of a gamble. And the ones I've been making are the ones that are a bit of a gamble. So I really don't suggest following me on them. I like that sector because we're gonna have so much energy demand. I mean, even already just from the electric vehicles and some of the other things, this AI demand is just off the charts. The fact that they're going to require Amazon and Google and anyone else who's getting into it to start creating their own generators and producing their own energy, it just tells you what kind of demand there is. Half of me wonders if they're going to start out by telling them that they have to do that. And then when Amazon transforms that into building competition for, NV Energy or something, because, well, why just build it for our AI? We'll sell it to the public as well. Then the DOJ is going to come in and say they're a monopoly and they can't have all of it. So I think, we'll see how it plays out. But these companies are so well funded. If they start building their own energy companies, I think that's going to be another offshoot of ways they can make revenue, not just create their own energy. So I don't know. Google and Amazon and all of it, they're so big already. It's almost like you should just make them do a partnership with another company that's the actual energy company instead of telling them they have to create it for themselves. Um, but the report that I was reading was talking about the demand is getting so high that it's going to drive up the energy price for you and I in our home. Basically, the demand is just getting stronger and stronger, and like anything else, prices are determined by supply and demand. And as the corporations are demanding the energy, that's higher demand, which means higher prices. So getting the electric bill in our homes is going to get higher. Now, I put solar on my home somewhat recently because our bills were going up so much every year. Um, at the same time, I'm a little, at least for now, I'm a little annoyed they're coming out to do an analysis. We had it put in about a year ago and it's not doing what they said it would. I've complained a long time. They pointed to the contract saying, well, we don't guarantee anything. They finally looked at one of my bills and were like, oh, well, we're going to take a trip out and take a look at it, the solar, to make sure, it's operating properly. They still pointed to we don't guarantee everything, but my attitude is, what good are your engineers and the information you have on your product if you're putting it up on people's homes and don't really know how well it'll do? And then the answer is, well, we don't know what the shading from the trees around it would be. And I'm thinking, same thing. Like, you're professionals, you have engineers. There should be a pretty easy way to do an analysis of the trees in the area. And I think that's just a bit of an excuse because our trees don't really cover the roof. I mean, the house is here. Yes, we have trees, but I don't think that is impeding on the solar on top of the house. So, either way, I'm a little annoyed with how it's done, but I guess we'll see. Yeah, I'm pretty long some Pfizer. Yeah, I don't know what I think. I mean, I don't really see much on them, but yeah, I think long term too. What I hope for a company like Pfizer is I get my 5% dividend and I wake up in 5 years or 6 years and the stock's trading $50 a share. Like, nothing to jump up and down or go crazy about, but if I can get my dividend and get some appreciation in the stock, what else could you ask for? Like, and it's a boring company. Like, I'm guessing they know the bureaucracy well enough that when they have a new product, they know the way to get it through the system. They know how to advertise. They get it out and distribute it to the doctors. They're probably good at what they do. I feel the same way about Bristol Myers. These are companies that have been around a long time. I don't think they're having major problems. I think they're having a typical cycle downturn, and I think that actually creates an opportunity. Maybe I bought more than I should have, but that I felt the same way about Pfizer. I'll have to look into FS and the ENX as well, but I just don't have a ton of concern that they're going out of business or going anywhere. And hopefully, they seem to be making enough money to be able to pay the dividend. And their last couple quarter earnings looked really good. Like, I'm surprised they haven't bottomed out and started drifting higher. I would have expected that by now. Again, not like blowing the doors off, but I would have thought they would have been sustained above $30 instead of struggling to get there like they have been. And as dumb as it is, um, Indiana, if you want to share your name so I can not call you Indiana, if you'd like. But as dumb as it is, because it's such a low volatility, I actually sell puts and calls and Pfizer as well because it's like, I don't know, I don't have a ton of concern that it's going too far. And if it ends up being like an Intel where it does continue to go down, well, at least along the ways, I've probably covered my losses by taking 15 cents every week on some of the shares. You know, it's not a ton of money, but it adds up. And if I do it week in and week out, and I have some shares that I don't sell anything on, but on the ones that I do, if I get taken, well, okay, more power to them. They have earnings next week. Just before the show, I sold a $30 call for next week. Thanks, Mark. I sold a $30 call for next week when the earnings came out, and I only got like 24 cents, but it's 24 cents and it's going into earnings. And if I get taken on 100 shares at 30 bucks, great. Um, let's see on utility. So, Erwin, I'm an electrical engineer. Boy, I wish I was an engineer that works on utility scale solar projects. Funny enough. Soiling could also be an issue with the modules. Are they visibly dusty? I'm wondering, like, I started thinking the same thing. Not that I know nothing. So forget, like, it's just the way my brain works. We've had some rain and some windstorms, which isn't typical for Vegas. And I kind of thought the same thing. Like, I wonder if they've just gotten dirty and they're not able to get the draw that they should. Um, I still didn't like that the company just pointed to the contract saying, "Well, we don't guarantee anything." Especially, like, I'm a real, like, solutions type of person. If they tell me I have to add a few more panels and it's gonna cost more money, I really just wanted when I had it put in, the conversation with the sales rep was, I want to make sure I have no bill. And I'm thinking of buying an electric vehicle, like a second one. So please make sure there's enough up there to cover an additional vehicle, even though I don't have it now. I even went into, so last summer that we went away for the summer. So those 2 months probably show less usage. So please do what you need to do to make sure that there's enough coverage that my bill is the $15 that NV Energy charges per month for the hookup, because I that's my goal. So when we ended up getting bills and the response was like this instant defensive litigious, well, our contract says we don't guarantee anything. I thought, a much better answer would be something along the lines of, why don't we take a look and see what the problem is? Maybe we didn't calculate properly or whatever it is, so that we can get you to the system that you want it to be. Like, and then I get pretty, like, despite being so laid back, I know I can be, like, pretty annoying, especially through emails, when somebody gets under my skin. So I know that my responses probably weren't so polite either. Um, they were polite in the way they were written, but if I'm the one receiving them, they're hard to deal with. But that's cool, and that's good advice. They're actually coming out on Thursday. I'm curious what they'll say about the system. Hopefully, they get it working properly. Because I mean, my God, here in Las Vegas, I feel like everybody should have to have solar. Like, we live in the desert. It's sunny all year round. Yes, there's seasons that there's less sun and it's going to get less draw, but really it should almost be a requirement. And then when they were doing that 30% rebate on your taxes, that was the first time, if nobody's looked into it, if that's still available, that 30% off is the first time that I've ever looked into it and the math made sense. Um, the Solar's expensive, and anytime I've run the math to do it, it takes like 10 years to pay it off, which is a terrible investment. So unless you're just, want to be green and you're doing it for the environment, or you just don't want the bill, or you're factoring in that you think the prices are going to go up every year, or however you're thinking, to me, something that takes 10 years to pay itself off is not worth it. With the 30% off that they gave as a tax incentive, like, it's a legitimate rebate. All of a sudden, the math really makes sense. And I'm looking at a payback of like 5 years on average when I was looking at it. Clyde, let me see. I think Elon is incentivized to go slow until he gets his new comp package. Possibly. Um, uh, like, you were here. I don't know if you were here earlier on when I was talking. Like, I love Tesla as a company. I just worry if the earnings don't start actually showing increases, that at some point the investors are going to get disengaged or disenfranchised and unhappy to see a company that's had, boy, what, like 3 years of no growth, and they're supposed to be a growth company. At this point, it's really just on optimistic what it might be in the future. But I'd like to see them actually showing some growth instead of stagnating. Now, Also, the other thing that concerns me, so I'm on their email list because that we have a Tesla. I can't tell you how many more emails I'm getting about 0% financing or refer a friend and get this. I'm even getting texts now from them like, "How about trade your car in?" And I'm like, I just got my car less than a year ago. What am I trading it in for?" But the marketing is on such high, like, such a big push. I find with companies like an Apple or Tesla, where people are typically willing to pay a premium, when that starts to change and they start pushing discounts and sales, it's probably, and I don't know for sure because things are slowing down. If they're out there really pushing people to try to get in the cars, which they should anyway, but when he's lowering the prices, offering 0% financing, and it does create a concern that things are actually slowing down, and that's why they're pushing so hard. Now, that being said, if the goal is just to build market share and get cars on the road because it's so profitable just to have the cars out there, then it's a great strategy. If that drives the charging stations, the repair business, and maybe just is able to suck out some of the market share from some of the competitors. That's different, and I understand that as well, which is why I say I don't 100% know if it's simply that things have slowed down that much. But my guess is it really is that they've slowed down that much. I mean, I bought mine around the holidays last year and thought I was getting such a phenomenal deal, and they've still lowered the prices even further and now offering 0% financing on top of it. I mean, that's a that's a strong push. And then if you're buying a car that gets the $7,500 tax credit, I mean, part of so I thought I would never sell my car. It was my mom's car from when she passed. Um, I loved the car. It was running just fine, but it's a 2003. It was a nice car. Like it was a tiny little convertible one, even though I'm a big guy. Um, so I really liked the car, and it was sentimental to me, and I thought I would never sell it. When it started getting like repair after repair, and then all of a sudden it had a, $5,500 bill on a car that I think I got offered $800. When I went around looking, Tesla was just it was a great deal. Um, we've had another one for years, and we've had no repairs for 10 years. I've spent less than $1,000, and I think less than 500 on all maintenance, ignoring tires and windshield wipers type of stuff versus typical, ICE cars, the combustion engine ones, where, it's oil changes and timing belts and a zillion things. Even for those of you not familiar with the electric, even brakes, the way that the regenerative braking works, if you get good and comfortable with it, it works almost like a golf cart that taking your foot off the gas breaks the car. I've actually thought of one flaw that they should consider, but I don't work for Tesla, which is the brake lights should go on when people release the pedal, because the people behind them, I think it causes a dangerous situation where they don't recognize that the car is slowing down. It's the whole point of brake lights. And the brake lights only go on if somebody actually hits the brakes. I think if the car is slowing, they should have a feature on it that the brake lights actually turn on so the people behind them are more aware and don't run into situations like, if I take my foot off the gas really suddenly on if somebody's tailgating and I get annoyed and do something stupid, which sometimes I do, like it slows down rather quickly, and they don't see it coming until it takes a second or two as they're coming towards the car. Um, let's see, very interest rate dependent now. Until full self driving is no brainer, right? And what concerns me about the robo taxi and the full self driving is Amazon is beating, like, they already have cars on the road. I think it's Amazon, it could be Google, with Zoox, and the other one is getting there too, and they've had them on the road for 2 years. Now, Tesla recently sent something out, and I confirmed it with 2 other people I know who have it. If you don't have the full self-driving capability, there became this little pop-up on our screen that offered it for free for some testing. What Another concern I have, as much as they're pushing the 0% financing and all the other stuff, is when I got the full self-driving thing, which was literally maybe 3 days ago, I'm worried they're so far behind the others that they're pushing that out for free to try to get more data, because I'm definitely seeing flaws in the system. So my buddy did it because he pays for it, and the system's cool. Like, we're going down to the strip to go to some dinner, and he clicks it on just to say, look, it works really well. It goes around a roundabout in his area, it slows at the yield, it puts directionals on, it stops at the stoplight. So I get it for free. I'm taking my son to school and I'm showing it. And on the way to school, it's one of the few places in town that has a roundabout. It didn't make it around the roundabout. It automatically shut off. And that's where my head starts going. Are they still needing more data because it isn't being implemented where their competitors are already in? The longer their competitors are able to get into those cities and continue to make a footprint, and the further behind Tesla gets, I worry that it might be profitable, it might be a good business, but they might be further behind and not able to catch up. Maybe there's just multiple companies in the space and everybody's profitable and it works out great. I, I like I said, I just worry about the time, but it's way cheaper than gas, and it's way more, it's like easier to drive. It's a great vehicle. I don't know about the investment until I'd like to see some earnings and some actual growth. And I even worry if they get to the point that they're releasing the full self-driving, that it gets ahead of itself then because people will get overexcited. I mean, oh my God, it makes me think about, because Uber's partnering with some of them. Um, I was watching a interview of the CEO of Uber, and this guy's a genius. He might be an evil genius, but he is a genius. So one of the things that he was talking about is, in my mind, he's essentially going to end up stealing his own customers' businesses. He was talking about the data they collect and how much information they have and some of the things they're going to do with that data. So some of what Uber has, since they've started doing now Uber Eats and the other stuff, is they know the most ordered food by location. So he's going to start opening up restaurants to compete with his own client. Like, if he knows that, and obviously pizza, if he knows this is the most highly desired area for pizza delivery, he's going to go open it. No problem, Erwin. Have a good day. I'm going to have to jump soon too. So have a good day. I'm heading out to an appointment. Um, but he's going to open up a pizza restaurant. And either it's going to be Uber's pizza restaurant or he's going to sublease it to a restaurateur, and he's going to take advantage of the data to know what's ordered the most in every location and go out and start competing with his own clients. I think it's really smart as a business, but I think it's really terrible to do to your own customer base. Like, here you've charged them for years. They're expensive. They charge the restaurants like 25% of that sale. Like, it's a big chunk out of the bill. So you're charging 25% to then take the data to go open the restaurants of wherever it's the busiest. And my guess is, if you go to Uber Eats and you go to order your whatever it is you order, and you happen to be in a location where they recognize that that's a high demand product, and now they've opened a competitive restaurant, it- you may get a coupon to try their restaurant to draw your business away from where you go now to their restaurant. So I think all of it, well, it really is a great thing for Uber to be able to grow their company. It shows how sinister, for a lack of a better word, these tech companies are with all their AI and the data that they collect. You know, by mid-February and TN. All right, Clyde, I'm gonna have to take a look at those two. I'm always up for a 2x or a 3x in a short amount of time like that. When I get off the call in a couple minutes, I'll have to take a look. Yeah, and semiconductors are cyclical. So yeah, once the election's over, people might be able to to start paying attention to it again. You know, I can't wait for the election to be over. To be perfectly honest, I hate seeing all of it. It's a distraction. So, yeah, yeah, yeah. Anyway, as it's getting to 9:50, I probably should take off. Thanks, thank you to those of you who showed up. I'm gonna try to do another one on Thursday. I'm not sure what time. I'll have to look at the calendar. Tomorrow will be a tough day. I'm hoping to build the live chats. I think I do. I really like the interaction. Even the comments on the regular videos, I think it's cool when people get involved. And I may answer poorly, but I'm really never offended by any of the like. I like the banter back and forth. I like when people disagree with me. Thank you, Ryan. Have a great day. So if I ever answer poorly or if I become argumentative, just argue back. Like it's never offensive or bothersome. I just get opinionated and have my comments. Anyway, guys, have a great day. I appreciate you showing up, and I'll probably see you on Thursday. Bye bye.